Hey, Washington Commanders fans, get ready because what I'm about to tell you is the hottest and most crucial news you'll hear about our team's future this nightmarish season. I know we're exhausted from so many losses, injuries, and frustrations, but the truth is the upcoming bye week will be a turning point, a moment for drastic decisions that could completely reshape our roster. Let's dive deep and reveal the 7 players who are on the hot seat with uncertain futures and what head coach Dan Quinn and general manager Adam Peters can do to try to pull us out of this hole. Stay until the end, because this analysis will leave you shocked and with many questions about who stays and who goes. And, of course, don't forget to leave a like. It's just a click, it's quick, and it's all I ask. No one expected the Washington Commanders to be in such a delicate situation. There were doubts about whether the miraculous 2024 campaign, which took us to the NFC final, could be sustained, but very few of us fans predicted such a drastic fall in the second season under head coach Dan Quinn's command. It's a scenario of disillusionment that haunts us every Sunday. Injuries haven't helped at all, it's true, but something much deeper seems to be wrong with the team. Quinn is struggling to maintain the culture he worked so hard to establish, but we can see that it's tough. He's keeping his head above water at the moment, trying to hold things together, but he hasn't hidden his desire to implement significant changes during the bye week in Week 12. And those changes have already started, as we've seen. Quinn is taking on the responsibilities of calling the defensive plays from coordinator Joe Whitt Jr., following a disastrous stretch from our defense. It remains to be seen if this change will provide the necessary boost to improve performance, but the respected leader couldn't let things continue as they were, with the defense yielding points and yards left and right. We, the fans, are eager to see what comes next. We long for changes, both in the tactical scheme and on the roster, during Washington's long break. If the Commanders can make the necessary adjustments and some key players return from injury, we still have a glimmer of hope that we won't be an easy opponent in the stretch run of the season. But for that to happen, tough decisions need to be made, and some players may be on borrowed time with the team. With that in mind, here are 7 players from the Commanders who could be on the hot seat before possible drastic changes during the bye week, and who need to show up if they want to continue wearing our colors. The pressure is enormous, and the future of many of them is at stake. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn will have to be surgical in their evaluations, thinking about what's best for the franchise's rebuild and who can truly be part of our future. The first name on the list is veteran Von Miller, our defensive end. The Commanders gave him the chance to possibly win another Super Bowl at the end of his career, and we were excited at the idea of having a Hall of Famer on our roster. The veteran pass rusher has a direct ticket to the Pro Football Hall of Fame on his first try, and he believed that Washington, along with superstar quarterback Jayden Daniels, could help him retire in style with another ring. To say that this hasn't materialized would be an understatement. Miller has been a rotational force on the defensive line, with 4 sacks, which isn't bad for a player at this stage of his career, but he is part of a slow and outdated defense that is being easily exploited by opposing offenses, and his presence hasn't been the transformational factor we hoped for. That's the main issue, and Dan Quinn may not be able to reverse this situation after all, as the problem is systemic and not just individual. Miller has expressed a desire to continue playing beyond 2026, and he has also stated that he would like to stay with the Commanders, showing his affection for the team. But as a fan, I see this as unlikely. Adam Peters needs younger, more explosive options for the defensive line that can serve as the foundation for the franchise's future. And the former Texas A&M star doesn't fit any of those categories at this advanced stage of his NFL career. It's a tough decision, but we need to think about the future. Washington has little choice but to continue starting Miller for now, as he still holds value as a mentor and in specific situations. However, with playoff chances virtually gone, it may be time to start planning for the future, whatever that may mean. And that might include letting go of an icon like Von Miller to make way for new talent. This is the harsh reality of professional football, where loyalty often gives way to the necessity of rebuilding. Next, we have Preston Smith, another defensive end. The Washington Commanders are suffering from a severe shortage of edge rushers, and Adam Peters overlooked this crucial area during the preseason, which has cost us dearly. The complete lack of depth on the roster became evident when Datrick Wise Jr. and Dorrance Armstrong Jr. were ruled out for the rest of the season due to injuries, leaving our defensive line in shambles and unable to pressure the opposing quarterback. Washington has tried everything to remedy the situation. Several new faces have arrived, and almost none have made a significant impact. Preston Smith was one of the more intriguing players, especially considering he was returning to the team that drafted him in the second round, and we had a glimmer of hope he could find his best form again. Smith's previous production speaks for itself. He was once a standout player. However, it is undeniable that he has passed the peak of his career, and his current performance does not reflect who he once was. It hasn't been an easy situation for him to step into, with so many injuries and the pressure of being a veteran, but he has had more than enough time to adjust, and the performance simply hasn't improved, which is frustrating for us fans. With the signing of DeMarcus Walker to the practice squad this week, Smith's time with the club may be running out if the transition isn't smooth and he doesn't show significant improvement. It's a tight competition, and he needs to prove he still has a place on the team. The third name on the chopping block is Chris Moore, our wide receiver. The Commanders are ramping up the recovery for Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, and we are counting down the days to have them back. Both have been out for extended periods, which has hurt our offense, so having them back after such a long time may be enough to inject some energy into Washington's offense, which has been lacking this season. This represents a significant reinforcement for the Commanders, especially with quarterback Jaden Daniels sidelined due to an elbow dislocation. However, the return of the veterans is unlikely to be good news for all the receivers on the roster. This puts Chris Moore in the spotlight. The veteran had numerous opportunities to impress with so many absences at the position, but he didn't capitalize on them well, showing a lack of consistency in big plays. Other players, like undrafted rookie Jacoby Jones, stepped into the roster and shone much brighter in limited appearances, displaying more potential and grit. Moore may have been lucky to remain on the team after a shaky summer, where he didn't stand out as much as expected. But he can't complain much if the Commanders prefer other players at this stage, especially with the need to make room for McLaurin and Brown. Competition for roster spots will be fierce, and Moore needs to show something different if he wants to secure his place. We need players who seize opportunities, and he hasn't managed to do that consistently. In fourth place, we have Darnell Savage Jr., our safety. Finally, there was good news regarding the Commanders' injuries, with the team opening a 21-day window for veteran safety Will Harris, which represents a significant boost that should greatly benefit the secondary. Harris performed relatively well before fracturing his fibula in Week 3, and his presence has been sorely missed in the communication and organization of the defense. The Commanders have shown fragility on defense, with missed tackles and poor coverage becoming a constant source of frustration. The signing of the player won't solve all the problems of our defense, but it certainly won't hurt and will bring more experience and leadership. What this means for the future of Darnell Savage Jr. is an unknown. He arrived late and had to quickly adapt to a new scheme, which is always a challenge. The 2019 first-round pick isn't a generational talent, and his performance has been inconsistent. His future may depend on how the talents of Tyler Owens and Percy Butler are being perceived by management, as they are young and have potential. The departure of either of the two young safeties doesn't seem likely, as the team needs to develop these talents for the future. So, Savage may be the one making way for another player, especially if Harris returns in good form and the young players show more potential. It's an electric chair situation in the secondary, and Savage needs to show a much better performance if he wants to secure his place on the roster for next season. We need players who are consistent and don't make silly mistakes. The fifth player on the hot seat is Johnny Newton, our defensive lineman. The Washington Commanders still don't know what they have on hand with defensive tackle Johnny Newton, and that's concerning for a draft pick so high. We all had high expectations for the Illinois product, who came with the reputation of being a disruptive talent, but he has taken a bit longer than expected to fully integrate into the team's defensive strategy, and his impact hasn't been what we anticipated. Newton has shown flashes of talent, it's true, with some good plays here and there, but nothing beyond that. He has a vulnerability against the run game, struggling to hold blocks and fill gaps, and lacks the necessary strength to provide a solid base on the defensive line. His technique is improving, so there's still hope. By no means that he can develop, but we need to see more from him, and quickly. With Darren Payne suspended for Washington's international game against the Miami Dolphins, fans will have a great opportunity to see what Newton can do as a starter. It's the big chance he has been waiting for, the opportunity to prove his worth on a prominent stage. And we, the fans, will learn much more about how much he has evolved in his second year of professional career. He needs to seize this chance with both hands and show that he deserves to be a key piece in our defense for the future. In sixth place, we have Robbie Chosen, another wide receiver. As mentioned earlier, the Commanders hope to have Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown back soon, which directly impacts Chosen's situation. Both traveled to Madrid to continue their rehabilitation, so their situations may look much more promising after Washington's bye week. McLaurin was not placed on the injured list, but the Commanders need to make room for Brown if he gets medical clearance to participate. This puts the two recently promoted receivers from the practice squad, Robbie Chosen and Jacoby Jones, under intense scrutiny. The undrafted rookie Jacoby Jones is a dynamic tight end with the physical build needed to make an impact if he can handle the pressure, and he has shown more flashes of potential. Robbie Chosen was the other, and the glimpses he has shown in limited action this season suggest that he will be part of the team's strategy unless his performance drops drastically. Chosen is in the final stretch of his career, and the margin for error could not be smaller for him. He needs to be consistent and productive in every opportunity he gets, as competition is fierce and the team needs results. We know he has talent, but age and inconsistency can be a problem. He needs to prove that he still has the speed and ability to make big plays to justify his spot on the roster. Finally, the seventh player under pressure is Javon Kinlaw, our defensive lineman. The Commanders are not going to bench Javon Kinlaw anytime soon, that's a fact. Adam Peters invested a lot of money in the formidable defensive tackle this season, so he's not going to give up on him at this relatively early stage. However, it is also evident that his performance needs to improve significantly for Washington to see a good return on investment, which was a 3-year, $45 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. Peters' decision to offer Kinlaw that $1 million contract in free agency was ridiculed by most fans and experts. They did not believe that the former South Carolina star was worth anything like that after a disappointing season with the New York Jets. But despite a promising start, the performance has dropped drastically, and he has not been the dominant player we expected. Kinlaw is not dominating as his exceptional physical build suggests, and this has been his tone throughout his career. The lack of discipline in Week 10, with the incident involving Darren Payne, could have been much worse for him, and we know he was lucky not to be ejected. If he does not improve his performance and discipline, his future will become increasingly uncertain, and the $1 million contract may become a dead weight for the team. He needs to justify the investment and show that he can be a leader on the defensive line, especially with Payne suspended. As a fan, I know this season is a disaster, but the bye week is the chance for Adam Peters and Dan Quinn to make the necessary changes for the future. These 7 players are under the microscope, and their performances in the upcoming games, or lack thereof, could seal their fates. It's a do-or-die moment for many of them, and we hope the management makes the right decisions to get the Commanders out of this hole. Now, I want to know your honest and unfiltered opinion about these 7 players on the hot seat. Which one do you think is most likely to be cut or have their role reduced after the bye week? And which one do you believe can still turn things around and secure a spot on the team? And, most importantly, if you were General Manager Adam Peters, what would be your toughest decision regarding these players?